In a bustling Chicago warehouse during peak holiday season, a middle-aged woman named Liv was moments away from witnessing something that would shatter everything she thought she knew about leadership. What started as a routine training shift quickly turned into chaos when a dedicated worker collapsed from exhaustion, and the heartless supervisor's first concern was meeting quota instead of saving a life. But Liv wasn't just another trainee struggling with heavy packages. For 15 years, she operated as Olivia Hartman, CEO and founder of Meridian Logistics, responsible for building a multi-million-dollar empire from the ground up. When Supervisor Darren Cole attempted to dismiss a dying man's suffering as another excuse to avoid work, he didn't realize he was triggering a reaction from someone who had the power to reshape his entire world. Olivia launched a corporate revolution that unleashed consequences far beyond what anyone in that warehouse expected: pay raises, policy changes, and a complete transformation of company culture. What began as an undercover mission to understand efficiency transformed into a reckoning that exposed the brutal human cost of treating people like numbers. After that day, every worker at Meridian Logistics would never forget the name Hartman. Before we dive into this incredible story, can you tell us where you're watching from right now? If you've ever felt invisible at work or wondered what your boss really thinks about the people on the front lines, this story might hit close to home. Show some love by hitting that like button, and subscribe for more stories about leaders who remember that behind every spreadsheet is a human being with dreams, struggles, and dignity that deserves respect. The warehouse breathed like a mechanical lung-inhaling silence at 5:59 a.m., exhaling chaos at the stroke of 6. Conveyor belts stretched into fluorescent infinity, their rubber surfaces scarred by 10,000 packages. Forklifts prowled between towering shelves like yellow predators, their backup beepers creating a symphony of industrial urgency. Start of shift 2, current temperature, 34 degrees, quota, 1,200 packages per hour per station. Peak season protocols in effect. Cam's voice cut through the morning air with robotic precision, each word as sharp and emotionless as the scanner beeps that would soon follow. The announcement bounced off concrete walls and disappeared into the maze of inventory, leaving only the hum of machinery and the shuffle of steel-toed boots. Olivia Hartman pulled her knit cap lower over her graying hair and adjusted the name tag that read Liv Trainee. The polyester uniform felt foreign against skin that hadn't touched warehouse fabric in 15 years. She'd forgotten the weight of safety goggles, the way industrial air tasted of cardboard dust and diesel exhaust. Around her, 200 workers, moved with practiced efficiencies, some stretching tired backs, others gulping coffee from thermoses, all of them preparing for another day in the machine she'd built. They didn't see her as Olivia Hartman, CEO and founder of Meridian Logistics. They saw live, middle-aged, and nervous. Another body to fill. A spot on the line. New meat? A voice called out, cheerful despite the early hour. Brenda Lee rolled up on her forklift, orange hard hat slightly askew, grinning around a piece of gum. You picked a hell of a week to start, honey. Black Friday through Christmas we call it, the gauntlet. Olivia managed to smile. I need the work. Don't we all? Brenda's eyes were kind but sharp, the kind that missed nothing. Stick close to Miguel over there. She nodded toward a lean man, organizing packages with methodical precision. He's been here 2 years, knows the flow. Won't talk your ear off either. Miguel Santos looked up briefly when Brenda pointed him out. His nod was polite but distant, dark eyes already returning to his work. Everything about him seemed contain measured movements, steady breathing, the kind of focus that spoke of someone carrying more than packages. Listen up. The voice cracked like a whip across the warehouse floor. Darren Cole strode between the stations, clipboard in hand, his supervisor's badge catching the overhead lights. He moved like a drill sergeant inspecting troops, back straight, jaw set, eyes cataloging every detail. Peak season means peak performance, he announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. I don't want to hear about sore feet, tired backs, or personal problems. The packages don't care about your excuses, and neither do I. We move product, we hit numbers, we go home, in that order. A few workers shifted uncomfortably. Others just stared straight ahead. Miguel Duran's voice cut through the silence. Tell the new girl what happens when we miss quota. Miguel's hand stilled on the package he was labeling. For just a moment, something flickered across his face. Not fear, exactly, but the careful blankness of someone who'd learned when to speak and when to disappear. We stay until we hit it, he said quietly. That's right. No exceptions, no sob stories. Darren's gaze swept over Olivia. Hey, you look soft, trainee. This isn't an office job. Either you keep up or you get out. He moved on, leaving a wake of tension. Olivia felt her jaw clench not at the criticism, but at the casual cruelty. This wasn't the culture she'd imagined when she'd drafted the employee handbook from her corner office. Don't mind him, Brenda whispered, maneuvering her forklift closer. Darren runs a tight ship, but he's got the numbers to back it up. Management loves him. Problem is, she paused, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Watch how people bend before they break. Some folks around here are already pretty close to their limit. Training began with procedures, scanning protocols, safety regulations, Lifting techniques. Olivia's muscles, soft from years behind a desk, screamed in protest within the first hour. Her hands fumbled with the industrial scanner. Accustomed to keyboards and boardroom handshakes, Miguel appeared at her elbow during the morning rush, wordlessly adjusting her grip on a particularly heavy box. "Thanks," she gasped. He nodded, already moving to his next package. But she caught something. In his peripheral vision, a subtle wince, quickly suppressed, as he lifted a shipment marked fragile. The morning dissolved into rhythm. Scan, lift, sort, stack. The conveyor belt's heartbeat became her heartbeat. Her world narrowed to the space between her hands and the next package. The distance between quota and failure around her. The other workers moved like dancers in a harsh ballet. Brenda orchestrated traffic with her forklift, calling out warnings and cracking jokes that cut through the industrial din. An older man named Frank sorted returns with methodical patience. A young woman named Jess struggled with packages nearly as big as herself but refused offers of help, and Miguel worked like water, flowing downhill, finding the path of least resistance, never rushing but never stopping. Olivia found herself watching him, noting the way he favored his left shoulder, the careful way he stretched his back when he thought no one was looking. 30-minute lunch, Cam's voice announced. Resume positions at 1:30 sharp. The exodus to the break room was swift and hungry. Olivia grabbed a sandwich from the vending machine and looked around for somewhere to sit. The room buzzed with conversation, complaints about sore feet, speculation about overtime, fragments of personal lives shared over microwaved meals. Miguel sat alone in the corner, hunched over his phone. Olivia approached carefully. "Mind if I sit?" He glanced up, surprised. "It's a free country." She settled across from him, noting the hospital billing statement. He quickly tucked under his sandwich wrapper. Not quickly enough, she caught a glimpse of the letterhead. Chicago Children's Memorial Hospital. "Been here long?" she asked. 2 years. His answers were clipped but not unfriendly. "Like it?" Miguel's laugh was barely audible. "It pays the bills." Something in his tone made her look closer. Dark circles under his eyes, the way his hands trembled slightly around his coffee cup, the forced steadiness of his voice, it all added up to a man running on fumes. "You okay?" "I'm fine." The response was automatic, practiced. He stood abruptly, brakes almost over. The afternoon shift brought increased intensity. Orders flooded and last-minute Christmas shopping, post-Thanksgiving delivery demands. The warehouse hummed with desperate energy. Darren prowled the floor, his presence adding pressure to an already pressurized system. "Pick up the pace, people. We're falling behind quota." Olivia's back screamed. Her hands were raw despite the work gloves. Around her, other workers showed signs of strain, Jess wiping sweat from her forehead, Frank massaging his arthritic knuckles. At 4 p.m., Miguel stumbled. It was subtle, just a momentary loss of balance as he reached for a high shelf. He caught himself quickly, glanced around to see if anyone noticed. Olivia pretended to be focused on her scanner, but she saw the way his hand shook as he steadied himself against the metal shelving. Santos Darren's voice cut across the floor. Miguel straightened immediately. "You're falling behind. 2 packages per minute under standard." "I'll catch up." "You better. I don't care if you have to stay until midnight." As the shift wound toward its end, she found herself watching Miguel more closely. The way he checked his phone obsessively during micro breaks, the pharmaceutical bottle he thought he'd hidden when he dry swallowed what looked like pain medication, the photograph that slipped from his pocket when he bent to tie his shoe, a little girl, maybe 8 years old, grinning in a hospital gown. When the 6 p.m. whistle blew, Olivia felt like she'd been through a war. But more than that, something in her worldview had shifted. The numbers on her quarterly report's efficiency metrics, productivity indices, cost per package suddenly seemed like hieroglyphs from a foreign civilization. The morning alarm felt like a personal attack. Olivia's muscles had stiffened overnight into a rigid symphony of complaint. Shoulders, back, legs, even muscles she'd forgotten existed. She stood in her apartment bathroom, staring at her reflection. Yesterday's disguise looked more authentic now. Exhaustion had carved lines that makeup couldn't fake. Her real phone buzzed with messages from the executive team. Board meeting moved to Thursday. Q4 projections ready for review. The Shanghai expansion needed her signature. All of it felt like news from another planet. She silenced the phone and reached for Liv's burner instead. Back at the warehouse, the morning ritual repeated Cam's robotic announcement, the shuffle of boots, the mechanical breathing of the building coming alive. But today, Olivia noticed things she'd missed before. The way workers lingered in the parking lot, stealing a few extra minutes of freedom. The subtle sorting that happened as they entered, some gravitating toward each other, others deliberately isolating themselves. Miguel was already at his station, 20 minutes early, methodically organizing his workspace. His movements were precise as ever, but Olivia caught the slight favor he gave his right leg, the way he braced himself before lifting. "You're early," she said, approaching with 2 cups of coffee from the machine. He looked surprised at the offering but accepted it with a nod. Traffic's lighter. It was a lie. She'd seen him in the parking lot sitting in his beat-up Toyota for 15 minutes, head tilted back against the headrest, eyes closed. "Family?" she asked. nodding toward the phone he'd been checking. Face went carefully blank. Just stuff. The conversation died as Darren's voice echoed across the warehouse. All right, people. Yesterday we came in 3% under quota. 3%. That's 36 packages per person we left on the table. Today we make it up, plus interest. He began his morning patrol, clipboard in hand, eyes cataloging every detail. When he reached Miguel's station, he paused. Santos, you're my benchmark today. Show the new girl what professional looks like. Miguel nodded silently, but Olivia saw his knuckles whiten as he gripped his scanner. The morning passed in a haze of cardboard and aching muscles. Olivia's movements were smoother today, her body beginning to remember rhythms it had once known. But with familiarity came awareness of how the work ground people down. Hour by hour, package by package. During the first break, she followed Miguel to the vending machines. He stood staring at the selections for a long time, counting coins in his palm. Chocolate helps, she offered, feeding $1 into the machine. My treat. I can pay for my own. It's $1, Miguel. He accepted the candy bar with reluctance that spoke of pride stretched thin. They ate in silence, standing against the wall while other workers clustered in groups. The girl in the photo, Olivia said quietly. She's beautiful. Miguel went rigid. What photo? Yesterday, it fell out of your pocket. She looks like she has your eyes. For a moment, she thought he might walk away. Instead, he pulled out his phone, swiped to a photo gallery. The same little girl, but in different settings. A hospital bed, a wheelchair, laughing at something off camera, despite the IV line in her arm. Isabella, my sister, she's 8. His voice was barely audible. Leukemia. The word hung between them like a blade. Miguel breaks over. He was already walking away, but not before she saw him quickly close the photo app, as if hiding the images could somehow protect them. The afternoon brought increased pressure. Holiday orders were stacking up, the conveyor belts moving faster. Darren's voice cutting through the air with increasing frequency. Time is money, people. Time is money. Olivia watched Miguel work with growing concern. His usual fluid efficiency was becoming mechanical, robotic. He moved like a man following muscle memory while his mind was elsewhere. She saw him check his phone obsessively, quick glances when he thought no one was looking. At 2 p.m. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and went pale. Everything okay? Brenda called from her forklift. Fine, Miguel said, but his hands were shaking as he picked up the next package. Olivia maneuvered closer, pretending to struggle with a particularly unwieldy box. Miguel's phone was still lit up on the shelf beside him. A text from someone, named Dr. Patel. Treat me moved to Thursday. Insurance delay. It will call when resolved. The package slipped from Miguel's hands, contents spilling across the floor. Pain medication, bottles rolled under the conveyor belt, not illegal drugs, but prescription bottles with his name, dated this week. The labels blurred as Olivia quickly helped gather them. Tramadol for back pain. Ibuprofen 800 mg take as needed for inflammation. I hurt my back, Miguel said quickly. Defensively, moving boxes, it's nothing, but Olivia saw the way he clutched. His left side as he stood, the sheen of sweat on his forehead despite the warehouse's chill. Darren appeared as if summoned by the commotion. What's the holdup? Just dropped something, Miguel said, forcing steadiness into his voice. Well, pick it up and move on. We don't have time for butterfingers. As Darren walked away, Olivia caught Miguel's eye. For just a moment, his mask slipped, entirely. She saw a man carrying weight that had nothing to do with packages: fear, exhaustion, desperation, and something else. Shame. At 4:30, Miguel's phone rang. He glanced at it and went dead white. I have to. I'll be right back. He disappeared. Toward the bathroom, phone pressed to his ear. Through the industrial noise, Olivia caught fragments. Can't afford. Please. She's only 8. There has to be something. When he returned, his careful composure was intact, but his eyes held the hollow look of someone who'd just received very bad news. The last hour of the shift was torture. Miguel moved like a man underwater, every action requiring visible effort. Other workers began to notice. Brenda shot concerned glances their way. Frank quietly took over some of Miguel's heavier packages. Jess offered to help with sorting, but it was the kindness that seemed to be breaking him. Each offer of help, each concerned look, seemed to crack his composure a little more. At 5:45, 15 minutes before shift end, Miguel's phone buzzed one more time. He looked at it and simply stopped moving. Olivia glanced over. The text was from Isabella, sent from what must have been a hospital tablet. Miguel, I'm scared. When are you coming? Below it, a selfie, the little girl in a hospital bed, trying to smile, but unable to hide the fear in her eyes. Miguel made a sound, not quite a sob, not quite a gasp, and sank onto a shipping crate. His hands were shaking so badly he couldn't hold the phone steady. Hey, Olivia said softly, moving closer. Hey, it's okay. It's not okay. The words came out broken. Nothing's okay. The insurance. They're saying the treatment is well, they won't cover it, and she's getting worse, and I can't. I work double shifts. I work every weekend, and it's not enough. It's never enough. Around them, the warehouse continued its mechanical rhythm, but Olivia felt like time had stopped. Here was the human cost. of efficiency, the price of treating people like numbers on a spreadsheet. How much? She asked. Miguel laughed bitterly. 60,000. Might as well be 60 million. He looked up at her then, and Olivia saw something that would haunt her, the look of a man drowning in full view of the shore, afraid to call for help because he might lose the only thing keeping him afloat. The 6 p.m. whistle blew, sharp and final. Around them, workers began their end-of-shift rituals, but Miguel sat motionless, staring at his phone. I have to go to the hospital, he said finally. She's alone. She's 8 years old and she's alone and scared, and I'm here moving boxers. Olivia looked around the warehouse at the workers, heading home to their own struggles, at the packages that would continue flowing whether Miguel was here or not, at the machine that would grind on regardless of the human cost. For the first time since going undercover, she remembered who she really was. Wednesday morning arrived with bitter wind slicing through the warehouse like accusations. Miguel's parking spot sat empty, a concrete square that somehow felt like a wound in the fabric of the place. Inside, Cam's voice echoed with robotic indifference. Start of shift 2. Current temperature, 27 degrees. Quota, 1,400 packages per hour per station. 1,400. They'd raised it again. Where's Miguel? Frank asked, his weathered hands already reaching for the extra packages that would need redistribution. Hospital, Olivia said. Simply, the word carrying the weight of everything unsaid. Attention, Darren's voice cracked like a whip. I see we're missing Santos today. Let me be clear, we don't run a charity here. Peak season separates the professionals from the pretenders. The shift began with desperate intensity. Without Miguel, their section felt unbalanced, like a machine missing a crucial gear. Olivia found herself covering his station while managing her own, muscles screaming in protest. Around her, other workers quietly absorbed the extra burden, taking heavier boxes despite his arthritis. Jess, moving faster despite her slight frame. Brenda orchestrating traffic with grim efficiency. At noon, Miguel appeared like a ghost of himself. His clothes were wrinkled from sleeping in a hospital chair. Dark circles ringed his eyes, and he moved with the careful deliberation of someone afraid they might shatter, but he was here. Santos. Darren materialized instantly. Nice of you to join us. You're on probation as of now. Miguel nodded without speaking, his hands already reaching for his scanner with muscle memory that transcended exhaustion. The afternoon brought chaos. A system glitch doubled orders, creating a bottleneck that transformed the warehouse into a pressure cooker. Packages piled up faster than human hands could process them. Workers skipped breaks, ignored safety protocols, pushed their bodies beyond reasonable limits. Miguel worked like a man underwater, every movement requiring visible effort, every breath a conscious decision. Olivia watched him with growing alarm, noting the way he favored his left side, the medication he thought he was hiding, the tremor in his hands. At 3 p.m., his phone lit up with a photo from Isabella, the little girl in her hospital bed, trying to smile around the new tubes. Miguel made a sound like something breaking inside him. At 5:15, disaster struck. Olivia heard it first, not a crash or a shout, but the terrible absence of motion where steady work had been. She found Miguel collapsed behind a tower of returns, his body folded like a discarded puppet. His phone lay beside him, screen cracked but still showing Isabella's brave smile. Miguel. She dropped to her knees, checking his pulse with hands that remembered first aid from another lifetime. I need help over here. Workers appeared from every direction. Brenda abandoning her forklift, Frank running despite his bad knees, Jess calling 911 with shaking fingers. They formed a protective circle around their fallen colleague, a human shield against the mechanical indifference of the place. Then Darren arrived. What's all this? Why isn't anyone working? Miguel collapsed, Brenda said without looking up. He needs an ambulance. He needs to get back to work. We're behind quota. The words landed like physical blows. Workers stared at Darren in disbelief, as if seeing him clearly for the first time. The man is unconscious, Frank said slowly. The man is on probation for excessive absences. This looks like another excuse. Something snapped inside Olivia's chestnut bone, but something deeper. She looked up at Darren from beside Miguel's broken form, and for the first time since going undercover, she forgot who she was supposed to be. Are you insane? Her voice cut through the warehouse noise like a blade. His 8-year-old sister is dying, and you're worried about quota. I don't know who you think you are. Trainee, I know exactly who I am. Olivia stood slowly, her decision crystallizing. The question is, do you? The ambulance sirens faded into Chicago's industrial distance, leaving behind a warehouse full of shaken workers and one supervisor whose world was about to shatter. Darren stood among them, clipboard clutched like a shield, his authority suddenly feeling as fragile as the silence that followed. With show's over, he announced, his voice betraying the first crack of uncertainty. Back to work? We still have quota to meet. Are you serious? Jess's voice cut through the air like broken glass. Miguel just collapsed from exhaustion, and you want us to pretend nothing happened? Business doesn't stop for personal problems, Darren replied, but his usual conviction was wavering. Frank stepped forward, his weathered face flushed with anger. Personal problems. That boy's been killing himself to save his dying sister, working every extra shift you threw at him, and this is how you repay loyalty. Olivia watched the confrontation unfold, feeling the weight of 15 years of leadership, real leadership, not the numbers-driven puppet show she'd allowed to flourish. Around them, more workers had gathered, night shift arriving early, day shift staying late, united by witnessing something that transcended normal workplace drama. This was the moment, the crossroads where everything would change. You want to know what I can't handle? Olivia's voice cut through the tension with surgical precision. Every eye in the warehouse turned to her. I can't handle watching human beings break themselves to make spreadsheets look pretty. Trainee, Darren's voice carried warning. You don't understand how things work here. No. Olivia pulled off her knit cap, letting her graying hair fall free. Let me show you how things really work. She reached into her wallet and extracted her business card, thick cardstock with raised lettering that caught the warehouse's harsh, fluorescent light. She held it up like evidence in a trial. Olivia Hartman, Chief Executive Officer, Meridian Logistics. The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a package slip from the conveyor belt 3 aisles away. Face cycled through colors like a broken traffic light. Around them, workers stared in disbelief, puzzle pieces clicking into place. The middle-aged trainee who struggled with heavy packages, who asked too many questions, who cared too much about Miguel's pain, she was the woman whose signature was on their paychecks. Holy shit, Brenda whispered, then caught herself. Sorry, boss, holy shit. Despite everything, Olivia smiled. It's okay, Brenda. That about sums it up. She turned to address the crowd that had grown to include nearly half the warehouse. I built this company 15 years ago because I believed we could do logistics differently. I worked warehouses myself back then. Different company, same impossible pressure. I swore that when I had my own business, people would come first. Her voice grew stronger, carrying to every corner of the vast space. But somewhere along the way, I lost my way. I got comfortable in corner offices, focused on quarterly reports instead of the human cost behind the numbers. I let this company become everything I once fought against. Ma'am, Darren interrupted, his voice carefully controlled despite the chaos in his eyes. This facility has the highest efficiency ratings in the company. Efficient at what? Darren? Breaking people. Olivia's gaze was laser-focused. Miguel is 24 years old. He's been working himself to death to pay for his 8-year-old sister's cancer treatment. When he collapsed from exhaustion, your first concern was quota. That's not leadership, that's cruelty with a clipboard. She pulled out her phone, scrolling to notes she'd been taking all week. You want numbers? Here are some numbers. This facility has a 47% annual turnover rate. 17 workplace injuries in the past year. For workers who quit without notice citing unbearable pressure. The crowd stirred, recognizing their own experiences in the statistics. But here's the number that matters most, Olivia continued, her voice rising with passion. Isabella Santos needs $60,000 for treatment that could save her life. $60,000. Do you know what that represents in terms of company revenue? For minutes of what we make in profit. She turned back to Darren, whose clipboard had dropped to his side. You put Miguel on probation for missing work to be with his dying sister. Do you know what I make in the time he missed? More than his entire annual salary? Murmurs rippled through the crowd on Gar recognition. Hope? So here's what's going to change, Olivia announced, her CEO voice finally emerging in full force. Effective immediately. Miguel Santos will receive full medical coverage for his sister's treatment through our company's emergency hardship fund that will be created today. Every employee in this facility will receive a 20% pay increase, effective next payroll period. Gasps echoed through the warehouse. Even Brenda's mouth fell open. Quotas will be adjusted to sustainable levels based on what human beings can actually accomplish without destroying their health. Mandatory overtime is abolished. We're hiring 30 additional workers starting Monday to handle peak season properly. She looked directly at Darren. And you, Darren, are going to leadership training not as punishment, but as education, because somewhere under that clipboard-wielding dictator is someone who genuinely cares about results, and I'm going to teach you that the best results come from caring about people first. Darren stared at her, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. But I don't understand, Frank said, his voice bewildered. The shareholders, the board, how can you just change everything? Olivia smiled, and for the first time in years, it felt genuine. Because I control 61% of company stock, Frank, and because I just remembered that the best return on investment isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in lives changed for the better. She walked over to the PA system, the same speakers Cam used for his robotic announcements. But when Olivia spoke, her voice carried warmth that had been absent from these walls for too long. Attention, Meridian family. This is Olivia Hartman, your CEO. The person you heard isn't Cam anymore, it's me, speaking directly to you. And the first thing I want you to know is this. You matter. Your health matters. Your families matter. Your dreams matter more than any package will ever ship. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces, some shocked, some hopeful, all of them human beings who deserved better than they'd been getting. We're going to rebuild this company together, the way it should have been built from the beginning, where people come first, where no one has to choose between their job and their family, where leadership means listening, not just commanding. The warehouse erupted in applausative at first, then building to a roar that echoed off the concrete walls and steel beams. Later that evening, as Olivia sat in her Honda in the parking lot, she received a text from an unknown number. It was Miguel, writing from his hospital bed. Ms. Hartman, they're keeping me overnight for observation, but the doctors say I'll be fine. Thank you for what you did today. Isabella wants to meet the lady who helped her big brother. When I told her you were the CEO who went undercover, she said you sound like a superhero. Maybe she's right. Attached was a photo. Miguel and Isabella together in the hospital room, both smiling genuine smiles, not the forced ones Olivia had grown accustomed to seeing in the warehouse below the photo. Isabella had dictated a message, "Thank you for taking care of Miguel. He takes care of everyone but forgets to take care of himself." Olivia wiped tears from her eyes and typed back, "Tell Isabella that superheroes learn from the people they meet. Miguel taught me what real strength looks like." As she drove home through Chicago's streets, Olivia reflected on the lesson that would stay with her forever. True leadership isn't about commanding from above. It's about understanding from within. The best leaders don't just talk about putting people first. They get their hands dirty, learn names, hear stories, and remember that behind every number is a human being with dreams, fears, and struggles. The warehouse would never be the same. Neither would she. If this story reminded you that leadership starts with listening, and that the best companies are built on compassion rather than just competition, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about what happens when we remember that business is ultimately about people, serving people. Because in a world obsessed with efficiency, sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply care.